What's up, guys? Joseph here. Welcome to the show. It is time for Authors of Amazon. I am very, very happy to welcome a very special guest today, Mr. AlfonZo Rachel. You've probably seen him on the Zoloft and Zo Nation or Fox News or our show. He's all over the place. He's got a new book out. It's called A Solid Rice. Ooh, Solid Rice. We'll re-record that. He's got some solid rice. I'm leaving that in. Forget it.
Crunchy rice.
A solid right cross, biblical boxing and conservative counterpunching against liberal loons and godless goons. What do you guys know about that? So welcome to the show, Mr. AlfonZo Rachel. Zo, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking time to come and chat with us today. How are we doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Mama said, knock you out. Don't call it a comeback. So Rachel in the house, ladies and gentlemen. So what prompted you to write this particular book?
Oh, good question, man. It's a solid right cross is a bit of my Christian conservative manifesto, and I like the way my friend puts it. C.L. Bryant, who says this book speaks to the fighting spirit of America, and but what inspired me to write the book is it's basically this idea of us trying to do things our own way, and in trying to do these things, man, it's like we're really getting it wrong. All right, it's like everybody has this idea of how things should be done, and what's going to save the world, or what's going to save America, or what's going to save their country, and stuff like that. And these ideas, man, are getting in the way of the very thing that needs to get done to achieve this idea. And really, there's only one way to do it. There's really only one way. And that's what this book is promoting. It's like, look, there needs to be a standard. Anything that people are trying to do, whether it comes to the ideas of goodness, whether it comes to the idea of what it is to be a man, whether it comes to the idea of what it is to be a woman, how to raise your kids and all that sort of stuff. These different ideas are making things really distorted. And when we try to set our own standard to how we're gonna do this experiment has been going along a long time, and we see that it's getting worse. It's getting much worse because we keep trying to do things our own way according to what we think is right, and it's wrong.
Okay. So as a political and potentially a religious minority, as a black conservative, do you feel that you're on the fringe of the political team, if you will? Example being, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, actually, how being Middle Eastern Muslims don't necessarily always consider like black American Muslims to be on the same level as them as a whole with regards to the religious aspect. I can only imagine it's like a lonely place to be a black Christian conservative, especially in 2019.
That's interesting, man, because like here in America, the narrative is that Islam is like the religion of the black man. That was like something that was promoted for a long time, and that's one of the reasons why Malcolm X got killed, because he was like, actually, that's not true. So he came to basically break that narrative wide open and destroy it, and it got him into a lot of trouble. But Islam, that was a religion that was created by Arabs. It's not like this African religion or this religion that's devoted to the black man or that blacks can lay claim to. But as far as being a Christian, I'm definitely in what they would call a religious minority. One, because I'm not religious at all. That even with Christians, that puts me in a minority with them, because they're like, because still even with Christians, they consider it religion, and I'm not a religious person. Jesus wasn't a religious person. Jesus hated religion. Religion killed Jesus, actually. So he wasn't a fan of religion himself. So, but me taking these principles and applying it to my political point of view is, for me, is paramount, man, because we try to establish our political ideas according to what we think is right, and it always goes wrong, and even when people try to take the Bible and apply it biblically, they do it wrong. That's why God put it in his commandments. Hey, look, don't take my name in vain. These things that you're trying to do, and you say that I told you to do them, you're doing it wrong. Knock it off. So he puts his statutes and he makes them very clear. Unfortunately, people end up twisting them culturally. They twist them philosophically. They twist them politically.
Right, right. So you mentioned Malcolm X and his views and how they got him in trouble. Actually, your views and your opinions have landed you in like a social media black hole of sorts. You know, it's like a shadow ban, if you will. Have you had this discussion, or actually, we had this discussion before? Because I remember a few years ago we were talking about this, and you mentioned this in the start of your book. So, how dangerous have times now become where an opposing viewpoint is no longer afforded an opportunity to even speak, especially like in your case?
Man, I did a movie, once again mentioning C.L. Bryant, who did a movie called Runaway Slave. And it's basically a movie about get free politically, man. These Democrats, they're trying to shackle you to a narrative, and you don't have to be. And in that movie, I had mentioned the way that Hollywood is going and trying to promote their full-on tolerance and acceptance narrative and their whole PC platitudes and all that sort of stuff. They're going to keep going until even they themselves are not going to have a voice anymore. You know, they're going to end up eating themselves. And an example of that would be what's my man's name? Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart, who just got booted off of doing what is it, the Oscars? I don't keep up with that stuff.
Yeah,
was it the Oscars?
Some award show, yeah.
The Golden Globes or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And why? Because they went back and called him out on, I guess, taking a dig at homosexuals.
Yeah,
and it's
10 years ago.
Right? It's like something like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now, I don't agree with homosexuality, but I'm not, and at the same time, I'm not a politically correct person, but I do believe in like political courtesies. You know, it's like, it's one thing to disagree with people. It's another thing to disagree with people maliciously. And I don't think that Kevin Hart was malicious. He called out something that it's like, look, man, it's not natural. And I'm gonna make some fun of it, but I don't think he was mean about it. I don't know if he said anything mean spirited that I know of. I don't follow Kevin Hart that much, but I've seen some of his routines, and I don't think he said anything that was so far out there that they would have to boot him out of the Oscars. But back to my point, what I'm saying is that this is what's happening. Even Hollywood, because of this rabbit hole that they're trying to go down, it's a self-eating snake, and even they themselves are going to end up destroying being creative.
I agree. I found it interesting about the Kevin Hart situation that I don't want to divert our attention from the book to this, but how they couldn't find any dirt on him a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
What else is funny, man? And this is what kind of broke my heart, man. What's her name? Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is going to try to set the standard of how Kevin Hart is supposed to perform. First, he called him out, but I guess he's trying to say that he's not black enough because it's like, you're black, and because you're black and you're supposed to be speaking out against Trump and all that sort of stuff. It's like, dang, who are you? Yeah. You're going to try to tell Kevin how he's supposed to do his act, what his content is supposed to be. Talk about a white privileged liberal Democrat who's going to try to assume to tell somebody how they're supposed to run their shtick. You know, and what the heartbreak is that Kevin didn't respond to her by calling her out. He did what she said. And I'm like, dude, it's like, I know you just didn't let her tell you how you're supposed to do your thing.
I think with Kevin, and I obviously can't speak for Kevin because I'm not Kevin, but I feel that he has a lot of people that eat off of him. You know, he supports a lot of people, and he's at a position where he has to do, I call it the Barack. He has to do the Barack Obama, and he has to just grin and bear it. You know, he has to smile and take it, because if he decides to lash out or respond in a way that maybe the people want him to respond, it's going to have an effect on multiple people. And I think it's sad that we aren't celebrating the fact that, okay, Kevin Hart said X, Y, and Z 7, 8, 10 years ago, but you're after him because you want him to make change, and he's done that because you had to go back 7, 8 plus years ago to find anything negative about the guy. He's evolved. He's not like that anymore. Jay-Z used to say, all kinds of stuff in his lyrics, but that he doesn't say anymore because he's evolved as a performer, as has Kevin. So anyway, so phooey to Kathy Griffin on that one. You referenced in your book people on the left of the aisle as using a southpaw stance, using the language of the right. Am I correct in thinking that you see this as a sign of weakness in their core values?
Not just weakness, sure. In their core values, yeah, because what is their core values? What values do they actually have? And so in that, yeah, I'm saying that there's a weakness in it because there's it's a lack of substance. But their strength is definitely in being able to manipulate people. Their strength is being able to tap into our sense of selfishness and our sense of self-righteousness. They're excellent. As I say, they have a horrible message, but they got a great delivery system. Whereas conservatives have a great message, but they got a horrible delivery system. So with the left, they're able to basically be like parasites, and they're able to latch on and leech off of language that we have. Like, say, for instance, conservatives, in trying to become culturally relevant, they'll say things like, we need to get rid of the term conservative. It's off-putting and stuff like that. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you say to get rid of the term conservative? Liberals use it all the time. They have their swanky get-togethers using language like conservatism, conservationalism, to conserve this, conserving water and all that sort of. They use the language of conservatism all the time, and it works for them. But you want us to get rid of it? That's not a good idea.
Right. Could it not simply be that maybe they're trying to appeal to some of the right that might share some of their leftist views? Because you do mention in your book that, look at my notes here, that some people feel that both parties are just two sides of the same corrupt coin, but it's usually Republicans acting like Democrats and not Democrats acting like Republicans.
Exactly. So in that, it's more of Democrats wanting conservatives to capitulate to. There's no compromise. All right. Now, don't get me wrong, because I'm not the compromising type. I'm not one to make compromises. For this reason, I don't think it's wise to compromise with somebody who doesn't have your best interests. People say we got to compromise, we got to work together. It's like, look, or as the saying goes, you want to cooperate with the pilot. If whoever the pilot is, you want to cooperate with the pilot. It's like, no, not exactly. If the pilot is looking to hijack your plane and crash it into the sea, you don't want to compromise with them, right? It's not a plan that you want to work with. So, with Democrats, they're not looking for a compromise. They want capitulation. They want submission. Whereas conservatives are like, look, I'm not looking to compromise with you. I don't want you to submit to us, but we don't want you to get in our way either.
Right. Fair enough. You say in your book that Republicans don't have anything in common with Nazis or the KKK. Democrats do. Can you go deeper into that statement as to why you feel that that's the way that it is? Sure.
Well, let's start it with the KKK. The Democrats created the KKK. That was their terrorist organization that they created. When the Confederacy, which was also founded by the Democrat Party, when the Confederacy lost the Civil War, they got so angry that they formed a terrorist group. That terrorist group was the KKK. So Republicans have nothing to do with that. Matter of fact, the KKK was actually founded to go after Republicans, and of course after anybody that didn't agree with their worldview and didn't fit into what they thought was right. Of course, that included blacks, that included Jews, and so on and so forth. But their main enemy, the main enemy of the KKK, was the Republican Party. So the KKK kept their thing going all the way up into the 60s and the early 70s, pushing for revocation or blocking civil rights, blocking voter rights. This is all Democrats. This has nothing to do with Republicans. As far as Nazism goes, both the KKK and Nazis are not big fans of the Jews. And you can see it today with the Democrat Party, who has sided with the Palestinians. They reject what rightfully belongs to the Israelis. You can see their indifference. and or their apathy towards it. So this carries on even until today. Nazism is Democrats have gone full on socialist. They've always the platform of the Democrat Party has always been about enjoying your comforts at the forced expense of somebody else. That has always been the Democrat Party. Now it has become the institution of collectivism and socialism. Well, that has nothing to do with Republicans. That's all Democrats. And Nazi itself stands for National German Socialist Workers' Party. They're both socialists. So that has nothing to do with us.
I have to say that I agree with that. But we do have to remember that political, I don't want to. How do I want to say this? The political parties and their labeling sometimes change. As you know, the Republican Party used to be the Democratic Party, and vice versa.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
I have heard.
Right. So that's why I brought it up, because I know that you'll be able to shed some more Snopian type truth to it, if there is any. Because I mean, you never know what you're getting these days is factual or not.
If I could invoke Malcolm X again, man, and he even said, when they talk about the political ideologies to switch and the political parties to switch, the political ideology, Malcolm X was calling them out before the so-called switch, even before the switch happened. Like, so when you have, the black community that says that, the parties that switch sides. Well, if the parties that switch sides, well, what was your excuse for supporting the Democrat Party before the so-called switch? Because Malcolm X was calling them out before that. Malcolm X said, if you put your support behind the Democrat Party, you are a political chump and a traitor to your race. So before the so-called switch even happened, Malcolm X saw this coming. So the thing is that there was no switch, because if there was a switch and they say that Democrats became Republicans, and well, where did the Republicans go? There was no mutual switch. A bunch of Republicans didn't go and become Democrats. So this is one-sided thing. But people try to say that, the Republicans were the liberals back then and the Democrats were the conservatives. Man, Democrats have never been conservative. Ever. In order to be conservative, that means that you have to adhere to whatever your founding principle is. You have to be conservative with it. Democrats have never done that. They've always taken liberties. Like, say, for instance, with the Constitution. The Democrats took such gross liberties with the Constitution that they said, you know what, screw it. We'll take the liberty to make our own. That's when they made the Constitution of the Confederate States. So when people try to say that, well, the Constitution supports slavery, it's like, no, dude, you're reading the wrong Constitution. That's not the U.S. Constitution that supports slavery. That's the Confederate Constitution that supports slavery. That's the Constitution that the Democrats took the liberty to draw up. And even Abraham Lincoln himself, man, he says, when Democrats tried to make the claim that they're the conservatives, even Lincoln said, no, you're not. We are. People try to say that Lincoln he was a liberal Republican. Lincoln's like, no, I'm conservative. You try to say that we're not, but we're the ones who conserve to what the founders were actually talking about, that these liberties are God-given and they're to be afforded to everybody. Whereas you Democrats, you guys keep trying to get away from the old school view that acknowledged the God-given rights of man for everybody. So Lincoln was calling them out even back in his day. See, you're no conservatives. That's us.
Right. So let's move away from the political aspect of things for a second, and let's focus on the religious side if we can. For so many Americans, especially younger Americans, religion it's not even a part of their reality anymore, especially as it was when we were growing up. There has been such a massive cultural shift in the last 10, 15 years that younger people are simply not buying into it. And I don't feel that they feel they need it in their lives anymore. So perhaps religion will naturally become less and less as time progresses, if that's the case. What do you feel about that?
It's going to go through a valley and a peak. And this has always been, man. This isn't a new thing. But the reason why this is important is because now there is no excuse to not see that this is how this works. I mean, right now I'm talking. You're in the UK, man. I'm here in the States, and we're able to have this dialogue at the click of a button. Right. And we're able to research things and find things and see things that have happened and all this sort of stuff. I mean, basically in real time. In this generation, there's no excuse now to not see how this is going down. So, but you're right, man. There is people are feeling a void in terms of religion, and in a way that's good, because religion is not supposed to be the thing that fills the void in the first place. If we're talking about something that's fake, well, that's what religion is. Religion is fake. Jesus himself is real. He's the real deal. So for me, I'm like, yeah, this is good that people are abandoning religion. They don't see how religion fulfills their lives, and that they're absolutely right. It doesn't. So, but the thing is, man, with this whole thing, people don't feel that it challenges them maybe intellectually. They're looking for things. They're looking for this evidence that that gives them proof that there is some sort of God, but the thing is, man, the proof that they want, matter of fact, it isn't even proof that they want. Like, I ask people all the time when they ask for proof of a God, I'm like, okay, well, you want proof of a God? Prove that you want proof. You don't want proof. It's not proof that you want, because if you had the proof, that means that you would have to obey God. It's the obedience that you don't want to live up to. You don't want to live up to the statutes of God. God says, this is what you're not supposed to do, and this is how you're supposed to do it. If you really want peace, joy, and prosperity in the world, this is the template for that. Follow that and you'll be straight. Well, people are like, well, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, that's the reason why people don't believe in God, because they don't want to obey God.
I can agree with that to an extent. I feel also that certain people might not believe in a God because we're in an informational age right now where everything, like you said, is at a click of a button and we can get all this information. So you're getting a lot of false information. You're getting a lot of accurate information. And I mean, we have to appreciate the fact that people's perspectives have shifted considerably. Like we said, 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't be having a lot of these political correctness conversations. We wouldn't be having a lot of the conversations about religion that we're having now. So go ahead.
I was going to say, well, but here's the thing, man. The reason, a lot of people, like, we see it right now when people say that, like, people like us conservatives, we're science deniers, and we don't believe in global warming and all this sort of stuff. And this is getting back to, people don't want the proof. Let's take it back to, like, say, for instance, they're going to call us science deniers, but they believe that a person can change their gender against their DNA. Their DNA code says this is what you are, but you're assuming that you can change that. Now, I think it's interesting, man, that one of the first statements that God makes about us in the Bible, not only does he lay down the science, like that scientists think, scientists assume that, oh, we found water on another planet, there must be life there. And that's like some mind-blowing science that people think is like new. And it's like, well, the Bible had already spelled that out. So it had already told us what the formula for life is. You're going to need water, you're going to need light, you're going to need heat, you're going to need a medium. You're going to need these things in order to facilitate life. That's like in the first page of the Bible. Right. But what it says about us, though, it says that God created man and woman, male and female. He created them. They're in the image of God. He created them both. And they're unique. They're distinct. I think it's kind of weird, man. This remedial statement has to be made about us. Like, you should be able to look at a man and say, yeah, that's a man, and look at a woman, that's a woman. Okay, it depends. Maybe sometimes it is. But anyway, right? You can have some pretty mannish and looking women. Anyway, but it's this remedial statement that's made in there. But where are we at now, bro? Where are we at now? We're at a place where a man can identify. He says, I want to identify as a woman. And a woman wants to identify as a man. Or one of the 37 different genders that they want to create. Science doesn't back this up. Where is this in our biology that makes this statement true? And I think it's really strange, man, that God wants to make that one of the very first things that he said about, look, you're a man and you're a woman. Now, against this ultimate truth that was made thousands of years ago, people want to deny science and call us the anti-science people and make this claim that you could just flip around genders like that.
Right. So we've got these people now that think that way, they behave that way, or they feel that way. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, we've got an entire society that's now been brought up with that mindset. So don't you fear for religion in the next say 20 years? I mean, we're in our 40s right now. Well, I am. I think you might be a little bit younger than me. You might still be in your late 30s, but
you're too kind, man.
I know. I try to be. So got to try and keep you coming back. But what don't you feel that maybe, you know, they're going to start teaching their kids? This is kind of like the whole racist, you know, thing, or maybe I'm in a gang and you're in a gang just because you were born into this gang, or born into, you know, my mob, or you're, you know, so on, so forth. So they're going to now indoctrinate their children, or teach, I should say, their children their beliefs in, or non-beliefs rather. So religion will start to wane off completely because there will be fewer and fewer people down the line of history, don't you feel? So are you concerned with that? Do you think that's just, it'll right itself eventually?
Does it warrant concern? Sure it does. Like, and as my earlier statement, getting away from religion, as far as I'm concerned, is a good thing. Getting to Jesus is where it's at. Jesus is the original freedom from religion foundation, as I say. You know, it's him that is needed if they're gonna to raise your kid up right. But the problem is, even in the Christian community, man, a lot of the ball has been dropped. You know, kids are looking for answers, and sometimes parents can't give it to them. And it's even hard to say parents can't give it to them because for a long time we've been raised in a single parent household. You know, and you know, as I say in my book, you've had generations of kids, even myself. I was raised by a single mom. I'm not judging, I'm speaking from experience. So I was raised by a single mom. And one of the things that I had to hear so much growing up was that my mom being frustrated saying, I got to be both the mommy and the daddy. Well, you know, a lot of kids have heard that. And I think it's quite a coincidence that because moms have been playing this dual role of both mommy and the daddy, you got generations that are growing up assuming that they could be both a man and a woman. So it's to think that these things wouldn't have an effect on society. Of course they do. And in trying to do this, in moms trying to do this, the single mother role, and the thing that this is celebrated. You know, it's like, oh, you know, you go, girl. It's like you could raise that kid on your own, and you're an empowered, and you're a strong woman, and you can do this and you can do that. Meanwhile, these same women are going to the store looking for WIC and looking for assistance from the state. It's like, wait a minute, I thought you were a strong and independent woman. What do you need taxpayer funding for if you're a strong and independent woman that you can go get this stuff yourself? You know, or the narrative that these are strong, independent women and they can do anything a man can do, and they can hold down any job a man can do, and they can do all these things and do all that, but they're terrified of a baby and will kill that baby in the womb before it ever had a chance to see the light of day. It's like, this is female empowerment to you? Really? You know, so these things, man, and getting back to religion, these things will surface again, man, because this was already spoken about. These are the same people who would take their children, they would sacrifice, their babies. They would take their babies and they would sacrifice them to the god of Mullet. Bro, we're here again. This has always happened, but we're here again. New York, you can give birth to your baby and then go have a meeting and decide if you want to kill it. They're discussing the same thing in Virginia right now. That's why we've always said, man, abortion is murder. You think it's just going to stop because the kid is in the womb? Dude, they will give birth to kids. And while that kid is alive and breathing, they will make the discussion on whether they can go ahead and execute the kid or not. That's where we are now. Again.
Still sticking with this younger generation topic, if you will.
And they're the ones who are wanting it.
Yeah. So I turned on the television. I was back in Michigan over the holidays, and I see we don't have these in over here in England, at least, these mega churches. And you've got these mega churches, and they're taking credit cards, and they're taking. You get a VIP parking spot, you know, if you're the one that's, you know, donating the most every Sunday or whatever, and they've got ATMs in the back, and, you know, they'll take down your credit card number so you don't have to, you know, put money in the collection. How are people, especially the younger generation that is so awake right now, most of them need to take a nap, but how are they supposed to take this thing called religion seriously when this is what's presented to them? So because when we grew up, we had, you know, there was always Pat Robertson on TV, and, you know, we had these televangelists, but it's gotten to a different level now, and they've been brought up with this since day one. They didn't have Tammy Baker, you know, crying and doing the makeup thing. So it's to them, it seems almost comical to them. It's so foreign to them. How, I don't understand. Do you think that there's something that needs to be done about these types of churches, or what are your thoughts on them? Because obviously they don't, to me, seem like they're in alignment with mainstream houses of worship.
Indeed, man. And you know, they're right to be, you know, put off by this because, and the thing is, don't take that out on Jesus. Don't abandon Jesus because of the misgivings of these like mega church hosts and stuff like that. Because Jesus himself says, you know, like you were talking about the parking spaces, you know, having like, you know, the best seating and the best parking spaces. Jesus himself is like, hey, those who your high profile hosts, those with prestige, give your seating to those who have less than you. If we apply that to the parking space, give those parking spaces to those who are less fortunate than you. All right, you're straight, man. It's like, just go ahead and let them have that. Don't exalt yourself. You know, those who try to exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So, you know, and like, don't go to assume to try to sit at the best table. Go and sit your behind over there someplace, because it'll be more better for you that somebody in front of everybody else invites you to come and sit at the head table. That's where this is the teachings of Jesus. You know, so you're right, man. It's like when we look at these things that these people are doing, it's like it's a caricature of what church is. That's not what Jesus meant for church in the first place. You know, so yeah, they're doing it wrong, and people are right to be off put by that.
Right on. You said in the book that many people, many people have said that the KKK is a Christian organization, and you disagree with that. Why is that?
The KKK is definitely not a Christian organization. Even I know they try to call themselves one, and they've held their meetings in church and stuff like that. Hey, the devil goes to church too. Is that the devil can recite scripture pretty well himself, and he's really good at twisting it. So just because the KKK calls themselves Christian doesn't mean that they are. When you look at like the hierarchy of the KKK and you look at their order, none of it has anything to do with Christianity. Like when you have like a exalted Cyclops, Grand Wizard, Grand Dragon, none of these things are in the Bible. All right. It's, in fact, wizardry in the Bible is an affront to God. The dragon in the Bible is the devil. When you have a quorum of centaurs aren't in the Bible. That's all this stuff is paganism, bro. Their whole hierarchy and their whole structure is rooted in paganism, not Christianity. So when people try to say that the KKK are Christian, it's like, look at their model. Cyclops, this is all Greek mythology. Centaurs, they're pagans. They're not Christian.
Okay. You said something in the book that I took exception to, so maybe you can explain it to me better. You said in the book that Afrocentrics, I'm quoting, Afrocentrics believe that white people today have benefited off of the legacy of slavery, but if people benefited off of the legacy of slavery, Africa would have the richest population on earth. So by 1680, end quote, sorry, by 1680, the British economy had improved and more jobs became available in Britain. And during this time, slavery had become a morally, legally, and socially acceptable institution within the colonies over here in what would later become the United States. So as the number of these European laborers coming to the colonies dwindled, enslaving Africans became obviously a commercial necessity, and it was obviously widely embraced as a result. So by the start of the Civil War, the South was producing something like 70 or 75% of the world's cotton and creating more millionaires per capita in the Mississippi River Valley than anywhere else in the nation. And slaves represented Southern planters, I can't speak tonight, Southern planters' most significant investment. And obviously the bulk of their wealth as a result. So if the Confederacy had been a separate nation at this time, it would have ranked as one of like the top 3 or 4th richest nations in the world at the start of the Civil War. So with cash crops of tobacco and cotton and sugarcane, America's southern states became the economic engine for this burgeoning nation. So how can you say that they didn't benefit from there being slavery in the states?
Well, if that's the case, then Cuba would have been a high-powered nation. Cuba had black slavery too. South America had black slavery, and it's like, and all these resources that they would have benefited from, African nations were also benefiting too. As far as slavery goes, that should have been a power and an institution with all the resources that they have to be able to benefit off of free labor. That nation should have been unstoppable.
But I think it was structured differently there, where if you have a different type of societal construct where you have, a government that's less corrupt than a different type of government, we'll say. I believe all governments are corrupt. Whereas in Africa, we know you have warlords and you have, 12-year-old kids with guns killing people, and, you have these gangs that have all the money, and that's why nothing gets improved there now. So this is probably a similar set of circumstances then, because it's not that far removed from today. Whereas European society didn't function that way. They had a hierarchical setup that was, in their government that worked better, we'll say. So I think that has a lot to do with that. And if you look at like South Africa, Africa is it's the richest continents out. They have everything. They have, diamonds, they have grains, gold, they have everything there. And it's not because it's not a rich nation. From what I'm understanding how you're describing it, it's because white people have gone there and stolen all this stuff. Where if you go to South Africa, I mean, living over here in England, that's where people from here go. They go, well, we're going to Africa on holiday. Really? Yeah, where are you going? We're Cape Town. We're going to South Africa, and it's mostly white people that have set up down there and set up the structure and set up, these resorts, and they created their own language, and they've created, we're this and we're not that. So I think that it would have been on the level of the United States or better had it been controlled better in Africa. So I definitely think that the United States benefited from these slaves. But
I don't know. Was there a benefit? I guess any nation that institutes slavery, there's going to be, and for lack of a better word, a benefit. Somebody's going to benefit from it, right? Because that's what slavery is. It's for your benefit at the forced expense of somebody else, right? So yeah, somebody's going to benefit from it. And for America, how it went along, even Booker T. Washington said, yeah, there may be a benefit to it, but it ain't going to last long. What's going to end up happening is that you're going to have, white people who are going to be so dependent on slavery that they're not going to know how to do anything. The black folks are learning all their industry while white folks are just sitting around getting fat. So it's like, and if you keep trying to go off of this institution of free labor, the problem is well, who's going to be making any money? You're going to have slaves doing all the work, but you're not paying them anything, and they can't contribute to the economy.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Sorry to cut you off, but I don't agree with that angle, because that's like me saying that I'm not going to know how to clean my house anymore because I have housekeepers. I don't give a shit. Excuse my French. I don't care about knowing how to clean the house. I don't need to have that trade if I'm rich. So if I'm rich and I own people, I don't need to know how to pick cotton. Who cares?
No. But that's a limited analogy though, because these people weren't just learning how to clean house; they were learning industrial trades. They were becoming tradesmen.
Yeah, fair enough.
Being forced to do it for free.
Fair enough, but the people that are hiring them to do that aren't doing that job. So research indicates, and I'm sure you're well versed in the history of what we're discussing, as you wrote a book, and I have yet to do anything remotely close to that. But the white Americans that were poor during this time were even more poor, because much like California is the example I can use because I lived there, you have people that are being paid considerably less to do what I would do for more money, or in this case, no money at all with slavery. They don't have to pay them anything. They just have to give them some the leftover slops for them to eat and put a roof over their head. That's it. Whereas if I hire, entry-level white guy over here to go out and pick my cotton, I have to pay him X amount of dollars an hour, whereas I don't have to pay these people anything. So how is that not a benefit? Because now I'm saving all the money, and these people aren't being taught anything. They're not learning anything, but they're working. So I don't need to pick cotton. I don't need to know how to pick the cotton. If I'm the boss is never out in the field. The boss is always paying somebody to go out there and do it. So that's where I take exception with that. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it.
I got you. But even back then, because that's one of the reasons why we have unions now, and unions have become grossly corrupt. But there was a reason why they ended up having unions, because even though, as you said, white folks were being, there were some white people. Not every white person was rich. You have poor white people, especially the Irish, right? Here in America, what do you have that song? What was that? Nina, no Irish need apply, because they wouldn't hire them. So but even with them, in trying to get jobs, they couldn't. And the jobs they could get, the wages were bad. At least they got wages. But the working conditions were so awful, that they ended up unionizing. But one of the reasons why they unionized is because the jobs were being taken by slavery. It's like, we can't get a job. They're forcing the blacks to work, and we can't get any work.
All right. So, well, I mean, we're in agreement on that aspect of it, but I definitely feel that there was a benefit to the entire. Oh, yeah. Everybody that owned slaves benefited from that. They definitely benefited. So let's move on. So you stated that wanting reparations in the book keeps you down. Wanting reparations keeps you down, and President Obama, which I know is probably your most favorite president, definitely not my favorite president.
Man, that is some good sarcasm you put out there.
He awarded $12 million in assistance, as they called it, to Holocaust survivors in Germany, and to the Holocaust survivors. And Germany gave, I forget the exact number, but it was over $1 billion that they gave. And this money helped a community who had lost everything, family members, friends, homes, clothing, jewelry, their livelihoods, everything. Whereas the black community literally had nothing, not even shoes on their feet. So when one race is enslaved by another, they're not educated, as I indicated earlier, they're not paid anything, they're sent out into the world. How can you say that helping them financially would keep them down?
Well, if we're talking reparations, see, I go back to, the old institution of slavery that's been around for a long time. If I want reparations, I'm going to look at the person who sold us in the first place. White folks didn't just come over and just grab black people. They were already enslaved. White people were just new customers. So there's plenty of blame to go around, for slavery. Got white folks to blame, got black folks to blame. White folks bought them from black folks in the first place. So if we want reparations, we need to be knocking on Africa's door and be like, hey, where my money at?
Right. So it's either regardless of who we get the reparations from, do you not feel that because of the history in America as slaves, as we've been kept behind, so to speak, as obviously we weren't allowed to learn, we weren't allowed to read. Is it not somehow beneficial to the people to be, and it doesn't have to necessarily, I'm not saying that we should be given a check. Here's a check, go, that's just going to make Cadillac the biggest car company in the world. That's all it's going to do, and I'm not trying to stereotype because whatever, but if we had the ability to be taught how to run business, how to, to set up an infrastructure, like the Jewish community, for example, is very tight and they're very strong with their money. And when I lived in California, I was in Studio City, which, right in front of my building, there was a temple, and there was the whole neighborhood across the road was mostly Jewish, and they had a Jewish supermarket, and they only shop there, and and they keep their community together. So that is like one of the biggest issues that I find exists within the black community, because we started off behind everybody else. So you've got, I saw a video where they were talking about how long money stays within a community, and they were talking about Asians being, Chinese, Japanese, and a dollar will stay in their community for upwards of 30 days before it leaves their community. White people, 25 days or whatever before it leaves their community. And I'm sitting there going, oh, geez, black people is going to be like 6 days, right? 6 hours. 6 hours that dollar stays within our communities. So, and we as a black community spend hundreds of millions, if not more, just on hair care products every year. Haircuts, dyes, weaves, chemicals, all that, exactly, all that stuff. So we have the money. So I just feel that we haven't been taught how to keep things together, whereas back in the days of segregation, we could only deal with one another. I could only go to a black butcher. I could only get my car fixed at a black mechanic because I couldn't go to the white mechanic. So technically we were better off as a community at that time in history, because once we became integrated, we then started taking our dollars elsewhere, and we didn't have the ability to set up business because of there were just roadblocks that were put into place. So so you don't think that this is a real, my question just got buried, I'm sorry, but you don't feel that maybe we should have found a way to maybe set up an infrastructure for a certain segment of the culture or the society that's been obviously enslaved?
I agree, man. And the thing is, just like you said, with all the money and all the things that we have available to us, I mean, what's really what's stopping us? There's nothing stopping us, honestly, except ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, say, for instance, we look in these communities, and when you look at, and I'm sorry to bring politics back into it, but a lot of it is political. When you got the highest, the places with the highest incarceration rate, high school dropout rate, highest unemployment, highest single parents, and on down the line, all these areas are run by Democrats. They keep voting in their arrested development. They keep doing it over and over again. So it's like that in itself, it's like, look, there's so much available for you to see what happens. But at the same time, there's a lot of tools available to keep promoting a lie. That's the problem. And unfortunately, in the black community, they keep embracing the lie. So, and this isn't new to me, because this has been written. It's written in the word. It's written in the Word of God that these things they'll just keep cycling, just keep going back and doing the same thing. The Israelites were the model in this in the Bible. It's like, look, dude, here's the deal right here. Oh, you guys don't want to follow the deal. You're trying to do your own thing. You guys are basically going to do the things that keep you oppressed. You're going to end up you're going to submit yourselves to other kings and gods, and you're going to end up being oppressed. And you guys are going to be crying to me again. And you're going to come back to me, and you're going to go right back to doing what you're doing. So in the black community, unfortunately, with all the things that are available to us, it's like, look, man, the freedom is there. You can be angry or you can be free. You can't really be both. All right. So take the resources that you have and get out of it. Everybody else has. Chinese have gone through their oppression. Japanese have gone through their oppression. Jews have gone through their oppression. It's like we can just keep listing people who have gone through oppression, and they're making their way. Right. So with black folks, let's not be the biggest sissies on the block, okay? It's like everybody's had a taste of oppression throughout some time in history. Everybody's had their taste of it. This is something that we're gonna let keep us down.
Well, we had a really big taste. We had a super value meal of oppression. Something that I saw that I can't recall the exact statistics on was making reference to what you said at the tail end of there, and I don't really want to dwell on it because we want to move forward, but there was an immigration act that was opened up in the United States that afforded all of these minorities, the Chinese, the Irish, the Jews, whatever, to open business and start getting bank accounts and things like that wasn't afforded to Black Americans. So this was something that we didn't have available to us, and I forget what law was passed or what happened in the government that allowed this to happen. But once this happened, Jewish people became white Americans. Italian people became white Americans, Irish people, et cetera, whereas we were still Black and we were still not Americans. So these people were brought into the culture because they were now part of their system, whereas we were kept out of that system and we weren't allowed to do what they were allowed to do. That's why I feel that took place. So anyway, moving on. So fourth chapter of your book was rather interesting for me personally because of my relationship with my father. And in this chapter, you discuss your father, who is a Democrat, and clearly there's not a strong relationship which exists between the two of you, at least not at the time you're writing the book. I don't know what's going on right now between you. That's neither here nor there. But you described him as a Democrat and a bigot, I believe. And do you feel that the actions of your father or his core values might have had a strong influence on, I guess, making the strong influence on you making like the conscious decision to be the exact opposite of him in almost all major aspects of your life, from religion to, your politics, etc.?
No, I don't, because you probably heard it a lot too. The thing that you don't want to be like is like your parents. In fact, if your parents were a certain way, the one thing that you don't want is like, man, I don't want to be like my dad, or I don't want to be like my mom, and they end up becoming exactly like them. And it's like, for me, I've had to be careful with that because, one, I never wanted that to come from a place of spite. It's like I don't want to become a better person or somebody opposite of my father because I'm spiteful. I forget. It's like, I don't hate the man, and I've forgiven him for a long time. But there are these. I'm calling out these hypocrisies, right? For a person who's judging, and not considering what they've done. But to the question of, has it had an effect on me wanting to be something different? Like I said, no, I can't say that it has.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that wasn't like the real deal. In certain, like, say for instance, in certain behaviors or personality, not particularly worldviews or political views or philosophies or anything like that, but maybe in terms of behavior, it's like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to be that way. But like I said, I still even had to temper that by saying I don't want to be that way out of spite. And in trying not to be that way, if I was just to kind of make it, do it my own way, I would have definitely probably ended up just like him.
At what point did you turn? I'm assuming that, most people, when we're brought up under the same political beliefs as our parents, because that's just is what it is. Your parents are Democrats, you're going to be a Democrat, and I was a Democrat until I got older, and I was like, hold on a second, I don't agree with this, that, and the other. So was that the case for you? And if it was, at what point did you then shift away from what your parents were teaching you as should be, the worldview that you should have, which was actually just their worldview that they were delivering to you?
Politics wasn't really a pronounced thing, for us growing up. It wasn't until I think I was probably about maybe like 7 or 8 years old. My mom met this guy. We lived in the hood, man. This was like Delman Heights, San Bernardino, California. Not the greatest place in the world. And but this guy, big burly like white dude. I think he was a former professional wrestler. He moved into the hood. It's like, oh, I don't know why he'd want to do it, but he was a civil engineer. He was working as a civil engineer, but I guess maybe to make his job easier, to do what he was doing in that area, he lived in that area. So, this big burly white guy moves into the hood, falls in love with my mom, right? He had the biggest crush on my mom, right? Treated me and my sisters, and I'm like the biggest snot-nosed kid ever. It's like, I don't know why the guy just couldn't stand me, because I was really an obnoxious kid. But treated me like I was his own son, right? And he turns out he would, let me know things about, like, I think in a couple of years, when Reagan was getting ready to run, he would start talking about Reagan, and he would, give me these ideas and philosophies, and that started to sink in. This guy was a Republican. So the first Republican that I ever met broke every stereotype or propaganda that liberals would try to say about bigots and homophobes and sexists and all that. Sexist, he was treated my mom like a queen. Homophobe, well, his only son was gay. So it's like, and he didn't alienate his son. He didn't agree with his lifestyle, but he didn't alienate him and disown him. So it's like all these things that people tried to say about Republicans, like, well, I met one, and he was nothing like that. So that was the influence that I had with Republican from there. But I'm still raised in California, right? The deep blue state of California, raised in the public school system. He ended up passing away. And, in my teen years, I'm back under the influence of liberalism. But that seed was planted, though.
Right on. Okay, one final question for you before we cut you loose here. You speak in great detail about collective ideals and political correctness in your book, from spanking your child to the entitlement mindsets of selfish folks of today, as you put it. These are seemingly so sensitive times, from media to, universities and their creation of safe spaces. And Dr. Jordan Peterson said, if a space needs to be defined as safe, you can be sure that is the one thing it is not. So what do you see as the final outcome, or maybe the next phase of this cancel culture that we live in?
Cancel culture. That's a new one. I haven't heard cancel culture. But the next phase of it is, unfortunately, it's going to get more bizarre. And I don't say that to sound cynical. It is what it is. It's just subject to the law of entropy. That's just natural law. It's going to become more chaotic. It's going to unravel. That's just the nature of things. And my job, so to speak, is to just say, hey, that building is on fire. You might want to get out of it. And if I can make my way in there and get past some of the smoking flames to kind of help pull you out, I'll do that. But I'm trying to let y'all know that the house is burning, and some people don't want to leave. Just like, when a hurricane comes in, people be like, I'm gonna ride it out. It's like, well, you might want to take the warning to evacuate. No, I'm going to ride it out. And then when stuff gets all messed up, they try to blame somebody else for not helping them. It's like, we tried to tell you to leave. We tried to tell you the truth, and that's all I can do.
That's all you can do. Fair enough. Thank you for joining us, you guys. It's AlfonZo Rachel. Go check out his book. It is called A Solid Right Cross. I'm going to get it right this time. Biblical Boxing and Conservative Counterpunching Against Liberal Loons and Godless Goons. Where can people get your book?
Thanks, man. At bronzeserpentmedia.com. It'll have different links there. You can order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Book Locker.
Excellent. We're going to have the links below, you guys. You just click down there. You can get the book. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate the visit. And whenever you want to come back on, give us a shout. AlfonZo Rachel.
Thanks, man.
That's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, check us out on v3tv.uk. Follow the YouTube page. You can hit us up on Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, wherever you get your media, we're there. Special thanks again to AlfonZo Rachel for joining us all the way from sunny California. Go check out the book. The links are below. It's a really, really good read, you guys. Definitely recommend it. Authors of Amazon, we're out. We'll see you guys next time with Jessica Clyde. We had her on the show last year. She's back again. She's got some new stuff for you. Stay tuned for that. And we'll see you when we see you. Peace.